Excuse me, why are you looking at me like that? The automatic doors slid open and Ariana's feet stopped, like someone had hit pause on her whole body. Two men in black suits flanked the exit like they'd been bolted there, and between them, arms crossed, shoulder against the wall like he owned the airport, a man staring straight at her. His eyes did a slow sweep, head to toe. The kind of look you don't have a polite word for. I was just informed that you're my fiancé. I found out about 5 minutes ago myself. Congratulations! Because I literally just heard that for the first time in my life. I know. That's why I came in person. To explain or to collect me? He paused. Just a beat, but it was the pause of someone who hadn't expected that question. Both. Is that a threat? It's protection. There's someone else in this airport right now who came to see you. And it wasn't me who sent them. Ariana narrowed her eyes and did a slow scan of the terminal. Behind a column, maybe 30 feet back, a man in a suit, phone raised, camera pointed right at them. The red light was on. He's not bluffing. And going with you is the safe option. Safer than them? Yes. That's a really low bar. Something shifted in his face. Not quite a smile, not quite a wince a crack, maybe half a second wide, but closed before she could read it. Ariana grabbed her carry-on and walked right past him toward the exit. Where's your car? Kang Joon-hyuk watched the back of her head for 1 full second before he followed. The look on his face said this woman is going to be a problem. 12 hours from Milan to Seoul, and Ariana Rossi had spent most of it with her grandmother's wooden box balanced on her knees in economy class. The box didn't have much in it. A few letters held together by a rubber band gone brittle. A photograph. Colours fading at the edges, and an address handwritten in Korean, a language Ariana couldn't read. 3 days before she died, Nonna had taken Ariana's hand and held it until it hurt. Go there. The answers about your mother are there. Ariana's mother Isabel died in a car accident when Ariana was 5. After that, her name became a word nobody said out loud. Nonna never once, not once in 18 years, talked about where Isabel actually came from. So really, what choice did Ariana have? 23 years old, unemployment benefits running out. The small fashion startup she'd been designing for had folded the night before, padlock on the door, sorry we tried, email in her inbox. She'd bought the plane ticket at 2 in the morning. Kang Joon-hyuk was not a talker, at least not tonight. The back seat of the black sedan had barely enough room for 2 people, and 1 carry-on wedged sideways between them. Ariana watched the city out the window. He watched his phone. No music, just the low hum of the heater doing its job. Where are we going? Our residence. It's the safest option right now. Safe from what, exactly? He turned toward the window. The pause stretched longer than it had any right to. My father almost certainly sent other people to that airport tonight. To figure out who you are, who I am. Ariana pulled the wooden box a little closer to her lap. She'd gotten on this plane thinking she was going to find answers. 15 minutes into Seoul and the questions had already doubled. The Kang family estate sat at the foot of Bukhansan Mountain, like it had been there since before the mountain had a name. The walls were so high you'd mistake the whole property for an empty lot if the lights inside weren't on. A woman met them in the entryway, middle-aged, precise posture, a small bow. Behind her, the hallway stretched back into the house like it was trying to disappear. Ariana stepped inside and stopped dead. That portrait at the end of the hall. Who is that? Joon-hyuk glanced back. In the frame at the far end, a woman in a white dress, smiling. Korean. Eyes that looked, somehow, familiar, in a way Ariana couldn't place. My mother. She passed away 15 years ago. Ariana looked at the portrait for a long time. A face she'd never seen before, that didn't feel like a stranger's face. The folded photograph tucked into the inner pocket of her carry-on suddenly felt warm against her side, like it was trying to tell her something. Nonna. What exactly did you keep from me? Alone in the guest room, Ariana sat at the edge of the bed and opened the box. She went through the letters one by one. Italian mixed with Korean, she could make out maybe half of it. Then she picked up the photograph and held it under the bedside lamp. A young Korean woman and an Italian man standing close together, both smiling. The woman was holding a newborn. On the back, two characters in small, careful Korean handwriting. Ariana opened her translation app, held the camera steady over the writing, watched the screen. Kang Joon Group. Outside, the ridgeline of Bukhansan was beginning to emerge from the dark as dawn came up slow. Ariana couldn't put the photograph down. Her hands weren't shaking, not exactly, but the room was quiet, and she could have sworn she heard something give way somewhere deep in the walls of this house. The estate was quiet, in a way that felt deliberate. Ariana woke up at 11. A thin blade of sunlight had forced its way through the curtains and laid itself across the hardwood floor. Strange ceiling, strange smell like aged wood and hanji paper, dry and clean in a way her Milan apartment had never once managed. Her Milan apartment smelled like old radiators and the neighbours cooking. This was different. She washed her face and came out to find the same woman from the night before standing at the end of the hallway. This time, no bow. Just a tray. You should eat. The young master asked me to bring breakfast. The young master? The woman dropped her eyes and let the title speak for itself. Apparently that was just what Kang Jun-hyuk was called in this house. Ariana took the tray. He can't even come tell his so-called fiancé good morning. Sends a tray instead. Next to the stone bowl of warm rice porridge, there was a handwritten note in Korean. She pulled up her translation app. The screen read, "Today, 2 p. The study. Chairman Kang would like to see you." Ariana picked up the spoon. Put it down. Picked it up again. The porridge was too hot. She ate it anyway. The study was at the far end of the inner wing, behind a door that looked like it hadn't been opened in a while. Ariana stood outside it and took 2 slow breaths before she knocked. Chairman Kang was standing at the window when she walked in, mid-60s. Back straight as a plank. He didn't turn around. Sit. Not an invitation. An instruction. "I'm fine standing, thank you." That got him to turn around. His eyes were his son's eyes. Same shape, same depth. The difference was that Jun-hyuk's eyes had a crack in them somewhere, a place where light got in. The chairman's was sealed shut. "You came from Italy alone?" "Yes." "What did your grandmother tell you?" "That the answers about my mother were here." Something moved in his face, barely. Just above the eyebrows. Just for a second. The kind of reaction a man makes when he knows exactly what a sentence means and doesn't want anyone to notice. Ariana noticed. "Stay here for the time being. I'll be in touch." "In touch about what? What about the engagement?" "That's a formality." 3 words. They landed in the room like something heavy dropped from a high shelf, and the air didn't quite recover after that. Late afternoon, the light going amber. Ariana was walking the back garden alone, the photograph from the box held in one hand. She kept comparing the woman in the photo to the woman in the portrait at the end of the hall. They were alike. More than alike, they might have been the same person, both smiling. But the quality of the smiles was different. The way a pressed flower is different from a live one. Same shape, different life. There was an old wooden bench at the edge of the garden where the grass met the stone path. Ariana sat down and was looking at the photo again when she heard footsteps behind her. "You're out here. Did you follow me?" "I come here every day." He sat at the far end of the bench. There was enough space between them for 2 more people, easy. Ariana flipped the photograph face down onto her lap. "Do you know what your father wants from me?" "No." That's surprisingly honest. Lying would be weirder given the situation. The wind moved through the garden once, rattling the persimmon tree in the corner. Jun-hyuk looked out at nothing in particular for a moment, then asked a question he kept short on purpose. "Why do you think your grandmother sent you here?" Ariana didn't answer. She ran her thumb slowly along the edge of the photograph, face down on her knee. It wasn't that she didn't know it was, that saying it out loud felt like it might break something that was still holding together by the thinnest thread. Late that night, the house had gone still. Ariana was passing the study on her way back to her room when she noticed the door wasn't fully closed. She wasn't trying to go in, she was just walking by. And then she heard something from inside. Someone was humming, low, almost toneless. Less of a song and more of a habit. The kind of sound a person makes without realizing they're making it. But Ariana knew that melody. Her grandmother used to hum it when she thought Ariana was asleep. Ariana had learnt it the way you learn things in childhood, without trying, without knowing what it was. How does he know this? Without meaning to, she hummed the next few bars, barely audible. Just breathe with a shape. The sound inside the study stopped. Footsteps. The door opened. Joon stood in the frame, looking like someone had just walked up behind him and put both hands on his shoulders.
Where did you hear that?
My grandmother. Why? He didn't answer right away. He leaned back against the doorframe and looked up at the ceiling. A man doing quiet math, trying to figure out what 2 and 2 equaled when the answer kept coming back wrong. That was my mother's song. They stood there in the hallway for a long time. The clock at the far end ticked through the silence. Something was beginning. Neither of them could have named it yet. And maybe that was the only reason neither of them walked away. Third morning in the estate. The house had started to feel less like a place Ariana was staying and more like a place that was watching her. Manager O knocked at 8:30. She was holding an envelope this time, not a tray. Printed on the front in clean block letters, design contract. Kangjun Group, Europe expansion. The chairman would like you to join a meeting this afternoon. A European partner is coming in. Me? What for? He'd like to introduce you as a local Italian designer. Ariana didn't take the envelope. She looked at Manager O instead. Manager O looked at the floor. A local Italian designer. So that's what I am to this family. She took it anyway. Pulled the flap open. Inside was a draft contract, and there, on the signature line, already printed in clean black ink, Ariana Rossi. Her name on a document she'd never agreed to sign, in a house she'd never agreed to stay in, for a meeting she was only now hearing about. That was how this family operated, apparently. The meeting was held in the main conference room off the East Wing. The European partner was Italian 50s, silver at the temples, the kind of man who fills a room by walking into it. His face lit up the moment he saw Ariana. He switched to Italian without missing a beat, warm and easy, and she matched him, because that much she could do in her sleep. Across the table, Chairman Kang watched the exchange with the quiet satisfaction of a man whose plan was working exactly as intended. Joon sat at the far end of the table, papers in front of him that he wasn't really reading. His eyes kept drifting to Ariana. She was smiling, full, easy, charming, but something was off about it. The smile stopped at her mouth. Her eyes were somewhere else entirely. The moment the partner stepped out, Ariana turned to face the chairman. Chairman Kang, I never agreed to this contract. It will benefit the European expansion. There's no downside for you. That's your assessment. I have the right to know where my name is being used and why. The chairman's eyes narrowed barely, but enough. Across the table, Joon set his papers down. You're more difficult than I expected. We're all like this in Italy. The room went quiet. Chairman Kang was the first to stand. He buttoned his jacket on his way to the door, and at the threshold, he left one sentence behind him, like a stone dropped in still water. Think about it. The door clicked shut. Ariana turned the contract face down on the table. Her hands were steady. That surprised her more than anything else had all day. That evening, there was a man standing outside her room who she'd never seen before. Not one of Joon people. Wrong energy entirely. 40s, dark suit, voice pitched low like he practiced keeping it that way. Miss Rossi, I just need a moment of your time. Who are you? I assist with certain matters for the chairman. This won't take long. Ariana didn't open the door any wider. Signing the contract would make things considerably easier for everyone. There are visa considerations to keep in mind, and your return schedule. Visa. Return schedule. 2 phrases that hit the air like the flat side of a hand. It was a threat, dressed up in a quiet voice and careful wording, but a threat all the same. They're setting my return schedule now. Have your people contact my lawyer. She closed the door, put her back against it. Her heart was going fast. Not the panicked kind of fast, but the kind that means your body understood something before your brain caught up. When she'd bought that plane ticket at 2 a.m. in Milan, she hadn't thought it would come to this. Nonna, she thought. What exactly did you know when you sent me here? 11p. A knock at her door, different from the others. Deliberate. 2 knocks. Clean. When Ariana opened it, Joon Hyuk's expression was different from anything she'd seen on him yet. He'd made a decision about something. You could see it in the set of his jaw. Someone came to see you earlier. Who was it? You already know, don't you? I checked the cameras. Then you have your answer. He glanced down the hallway once left, then right, and dropped his voice. Tomorrow morning, early. Come with me. We can't have a real conversation inside this house. Aren't you your father's person? I'm his son. That's not the same thing. Ariana looked at him for a long moment, searching for the lie, the angle, the thing he was leaving out. She couldn't find it. What she could find was this, inside this house, in this city she didn't know. The only person who had so much as gestured in her direction was this man. That wasn't nothing. What time? 6. I'll be ready. The door closed. His footsteps faded down the hall. Ariana stood at the window and looked out at Bukhansan, gone black against the night sky. She still couldn't tell whether this city was trying to swallow her whole or finally give something back. Maybe both. Maybe that was the same thing. Here's the strange part, if you think about it. Ariana came to Seoul looking for answers. Seoul, in return, has been handing her questions faster than she can put them down. From where we're standing now, watching this unfold, what we're really seeing is a young woman walking deeper into a family's buried past, one locked door at a time. And the thing that makes it hard to look away isn't just that the secret is connected to her blood. It's that she already knows that, and she's still not turning around. 6A. The back gate of the estate opened without a sound. Joon Hyuk's car wasn't in the main lot. It was parked in the alley outside the wall, engine off, waiting. Ariana came out with just a shoulder bag. She'd left the carry-on, but the wooden box was in the bag. She wasn't leaving that behind for anything. The car slipped out of the Bukhansan foothills and into the city as Seoul was just starting to wake up. Joon Hyuk didn't talk. At every red light, his fingers moved once against the steering wheel. Not drumming, just pressing. The way a person does when there's too much in their head and not enough to do with their hands. Where are we going? A space my mother used to work in. My father's people don't know about it. Ariana turned back to the window. Seoul in the early morning had a different texture than Seoul at night. Convenience store lights still on, a bus shelter with one person in it, a kid in a school uniform walking fast with both hands in her pockets. Real life. The kind that had nothing to do with high walls and locked studies. Ariana felt something in her chest loosen, just slightly. The studio was tucked into an alley in Songbuk-dong, behind a wooden door that didn't advertise itself. When Joon Hyuk pushed it open, old air came out first. The particular staleness of a room that's been sealed and respected rather than abandoned. One entire wall was glass, floor to ceiling, morning light coming through it in long, flat panels. A work table ran the length of the room, and on the work table, fabric scraps, still laid out exactly as they'd been left. The hands that arranged them had stopped working 15 years ago. My mother was a designer. She worked here. You never cleared it out. My father wanted to. I didn't let him. Ariana walked slowly toward the table. She touched the edge of one fabric scrap with 2 fingers. Dust transferred to her fingertips. And then she wasn't sure why she reached into her bag and pulled out the wooden box. She took out the photograph, held it next to the fabrics on the table. The pattern on the woman's dress in the photo, the seam direction, the button placement, the way the neckline was finished. It was identical, not similar. Identical. Is the woman in this photograph your mother? Joon Hyuk took the photo from her. He looked at it for a long time, long enough that she could hear him breathing. Yes. Then who's the baby she's holding? He didn't answer. It wasn't the silence of someone who didn't know, it was the silence of someone running the numbers, checking the math. One more time, before they said it out loud. Ariana waited. Outside the studio window, a cat crossed the top of the alley wall and dropped out of sight on the other side. Joon Hyuk crossed to a chest of drawers against the far wall and pulled the bottom drawer all the way out. Reached in past the back panel. His hand came out with an envelope. I found this when I was going through her things. 5 years ago. Inside the envelope were documents. Ariana unfolded them. Korean. She opened her translation app and held the camera steady while the text loaded line by line. Adoption record voided. Subject: Isabel Kang. Date of birth. Ariana's hand went still. Isabel? You said your mother's name was Isabel. Isabel Rossi. Yes. Rossi probably wasn't her original last name. Ariana kept reading. The translation kept coming. Born out of wedlock, Kang family. Adoption initiated. Adoption voided by order of the chairman. And below that, a date. The same date as her mother's birthday. The exact same date. My mother. She was this family's child. The room tilted. Not literally, but the kind of tilt that happens behind your eyes when the thing you half suspected turns out to be true and your body hasn't caught up yet. Ariana put one hand on the edge of the work table to steady herself. Joon took one step closer. Not quite close enough to catch her. Not quite far enough to be neutral. They didn't go back to the estate. Joon booked a hotel near Songbuk-dong. Ariana sat alone in the room and read the documents again. Then again. Then a third time, because each pass surfaced something new. A phrase she'd skimmed, a clause she hadn't processed. By order of the chairman. That phrase kept snagging on something every time. Around dinner, a text came in from Joon. My father has instructed them to begin your departure paperwork tomorrow morning. You need to decide tonight. Ariana read it twice, then called him. Yeah. The original documents, you still have them? Yes. And you have access to the company's internal records. Because you're the heir. What are you thinking? You know whose daughter I am now, right? So I need you to run the numbers again. Silence on the other end. Just his breathing, steady, while he worked out what she meant. She wants to fight. The corner of his mouth moved up, slightly, involuntarily. The kind of thing that happens before a person knows it's happening. He didn't say anything for another few seconds. But the silence had changed quality entirely. Past midnight, Joon went back to the studio. He pulled every drawer, opened every folder, his mother's handwritten notes, old receipts, sketchbooks with fabric swatches paperclipped to the pages. 5 years ago, he'd gone through it once, quickly, looking for something specific and not finding it. Tonight, he went through everything. The second envelope was tucked behind the back panel of the last sketchbook. He'd never noticed it. Inside, 2 documents. The first was Isabel's birth record. The second was a contract, stamped, sealed, dated 20 years back. Kang Joon Group letterhead. 2 signatures on the line. One was his father's. The other belonged to the legal team director from that period. Joon sat with those papers for a long time. The clock in the studio crossed 1 a.m. The alley outside went completely silent. He picked up his phone. Put it down. Picked it up again. He called his father. Do you know what time it is? My stamp is on that contract. I know that. But you're the one who handed her over, father. A long silence came through the line. Chairman Kang said nothing. Didn't deny it. Didn't explain. And that the silence, the absence of any pushback at all, was the only answer Joon needed. 7 a.m. 2 black sedans pulled up in front of the hotel and parked. Ariana saw them from the lobby. She was already downstairs, sitting on a couch near the window with her bag on her lap. The cars just sat there, engines off, waiting for a carry-on that wasn't coming out. Departure paperwork. That was what Joon text had called it. 2 words that sounded administrative and meant something else entirely. Ariana reached into her bag and took out her phone, opened the camera, flipped it to selfie mode and looked at herself for a moment. Under-eye circles dark enough to have their own zip code. The face of someone who hadn't slept and had made peace with that. I'm not running. This ends with me. She flipped the camera around. Hit record. The little red dot started blinking. Hi, my name is Ariana Rossi. I'm from Milan, Italy, and my mother's name was Isabel Kang. 20 years ago, Kang Joon Group erased her existence with a single document. I have that document with me right now, and I'm going to show it to you. The front desk clerk looked over once. Ariana didn't blink. Her voice didn't shake, not even a little. Somewhere across the city, her grandmother had pressed an address into her palm and trusted her to do something with it. This was what that looked like. The video went up at 9 a.m. Joon Hyuk got the link from Ariana, one text, no message, just the URL. He was in his car when he played it. Her voice came through the speaker flat and clear and completely unhurried. The way a person sounds when they've already decided they have nothing left to lose. It hit different than he'd expected. By 11, the Kang-joon Group PR team was fielding press calls. By 1 in the afternoon, the company's name was trending. By 2, his father called. "You gave her those documents. You made that decision 20 years ago, father, not me. Do you understand what you've done to this family? A family that only holds together because of what it's hiding isn't really holding together." The line went dead. Joon Hyuk set his phone on the passenger seat and sat there for a minute, heart going fast, not from fear. From the specific feeling of a door that's been locked for a very long time, finally coming off its hinges. 3 days passed. The Kang-joon Group board called an emergency session. The chairman released a statement, 5 words currently verifying the relevant facts. Business journalists spent the rest of the day taking those 5 words apart and putting them back together to see what fell out. Ariana spent those 3 days in the Songbuk-dong studio. Joon Hyuk stopped by once a day, every day. First day, he brought food kimbap and soup from the place on the corner. Second day, he didn't bring anything, just sat in the chair by the window for an hour and left without making it weird. Third day, he asked a question. "Any regrets?" "Not yet. Ask me again when it's over." What happens when it's over? I go back to Milan. Start designing again. But before that, she picked up a scrap of fabric from the work table and turned it over in her hands, feeling the weight of it, the weave. "I want to do 1 session in here. Your mother's studio. Would that be okay?" Joon Hyuk looked at her, really looked. The way he hadn't let himself before. Then he nodded. No words. There are moments when words would actually make things smaller, and both of them understood that. 1 week later, the Kang-joon Group board voted to remove Chairman Kang from active management. The 20-year-old documents were officially referred to an internal audit. The legal director from that era was called in for questioning. Chairman Kang retreated to his residence and communicated exclusively through his legal team. That big, immovable man, the one whose back never bent, whose eyes never opened, had simply gone behind his own walls. Funny how that worked. Joon Hyuk declined the heir position and accepted a seat on the board's audit committee instead, a chair he'd chosen, not inherited. The financial press had opinions about it for about 4 days, and then the news cycle moved on the way it always does. He didn't give a single interview. Ariana heard about it in the studio, phone propped against a spool of thread. She read the headline, set the phone face down, and picked her needle back up. She was finishing something on the work table, a piece Isabel's mother had left half done 15 years ago. At first, the stitching had felt foreign, like trying to write in someone else's handwriting. But the longer she worked, the more her hands seemed to find the rhythm on their own. Blood memory, maybe. Or just the particular stubbornness of things that were always meant to be finished. There's a version of this story where the secret stays buried, where the walls hold, the documents stay in the drawer, and the girl from Milan gets on a plane home with nothing but questions. That version almost happened. What stopped it wasn't power or leverage or a perfectly laid plan. It was a wooden box, a faded photograph, and a grandmother who decided that the truth her granddaughter deserved was worth more than the silence the Kang family had paid so much to maintain. So what does a story like this leave you with when the dust settles? The thing about buried truths is that burying them takes constant work. Somebody always has to keep shoveling, keep the lid on, keep the right people quiet. Chairman Kang spent 20 years at it and still lost because he forgot the one variable you can never fully control, the people the secret is actually about. Isabel's daughter showed up at an airport with a wooden box and nothing to lose. And that was enough. Power that depends entirely on what it's hiding was never as solid as it looked, and it never is. And then there's Ariana herself, 23 years old, broke, in a country whose language she couldn't read, surrounded by people who wanted her gone. She could have left. Nobody would have blamed her. The fact that she didn't, that she sat in a hotel lobby and hit record instead of rolling her carry-on out the door, that's the part worth remembering. The moment you're most tempted to disappear is usually the exact moment when staying matters most. Nonna didn't hand her granddaughter an address because she had all the answers. She handed it over because she trusted the girl to find them. That kind of faith skips generations sometimes, but it lands. This story is a work of fiction.